Caitlin Clark spazzed on the referee last night, and I'm not mad about it.
Every time I watch a WNBA game, a thought crosses my mind when it comes to the officials, and that thought is, how much money do you have on this game?
She literally lost it at a referee. Like, she had to be restrained from going at a referee, which is crazy.
What if I told you it only took 6 words to shake the entire WNBA? 6 words from a rookie the league thought they could control. Caitlin Clark said 6 words and suddenly, referees are under fire, league officials are in hiding, and the WNBA is spiraling into a scandal it can't control. This wasn't some emotional outburst. This was a message sharp, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. Because Caitlin didn't just complain about a bad call, she exposed a pattern, a system, a conspiracy that's been quietly hurting the game for years. And now, the league's silence is louder than any whistle. No statements, no fines, just pure panic while Clark keeps taking hit after hit on the court, and fans start asking the question the league never wanted to answer. What are they really trying to cover up? Want to know the real reason Caitlin Clark went silent during her recovery? Because while everyone thought she was focused on rehab and resting up, she was actually busy building something behind the scenes. Something the league really doesn't want you to know about. She wasn't just watching game tape for fun. She was paying attention, documenting, connecting dots. And when she finally came back, she wasn't just returning to the court, she was ready to expose something much bigger. This wasn't frustration, this wasn't venting, this was calculated. What she said wasn't loud, but it landed hard. And once it started spreading, the entire league acted like it never happened. No interviews, no reaction, no pushback. Because if they acknowledged it, that would mean admitting there's a real problem. And right now, that's the one thing the WNBA can't afford to do. So instead of fixing it, they did what they always do. They stayed quiet, hoping no one would notice. But this time, people did notice. Fans started putting things together. Players started speaking out. The numbers weren't adding up. And suddenly, a single sentence from Caitlin turned into a full-on conversation the league couldn't control. And that moment right there, that was the shift. Because Caitlin didn't just point out the obvious, she made it impossible to ignore. And for a league already walking on thin ice, that's the kind of truth that shakes everything. So, what happened when Caitlin stepped back onto the court after dropping those 6 words? Oh, they made sure she felt it. The hits started coming almost immediately. Not just normal physical play. We're talking elbows, shoulders, body checks with 0 attempt at subtlety. And the refs? Crickets. JCS Sheldon literally drove straight into her and sent a shot right to Caitlin's face. This wasn't a basketball move. It wasn't even close. It was targeted, plain and simple. And what did the officials decide? Flagrant one. That's it. A gentle little slap on the wrist for what could have caused a serious injury. And just when you thought it couldn't get more obvious, Marina McBride came through with a full 2-handed shove. Not even trying to make a play on the ball. Caitlin hit the ground hard. Everyone saw it. The fans, the cameras, the entire arena. But once again, the refs brushed it off. Ashley Gloss, the crew chief that night, actually said it didn't rise to the level of an ejection. Didn't rise to the level? Be for real. At that point, even the casual fans knew what was going on. This wasn't just rough defense, this was retaliation, and the officials were letting it happen. Caitlin said something the league didn't like, and instead of addressing it, they made her a target, on purpose, out in the open. And the worst part? That wasn't even the end of it. And then came the moment no one expected. Sophie Cunningham had seen enough. She watched her teammate get shoved, elbowed, and hit with 0 protection game after game, and realized something nobody wanted to say out loud. The refs weren't going to do anything. So she did. When JCS Sheldon went up for a layup, Sophie didn't flinch. She grabbed her midair and dragged her to the floor. No play on the ball, no pretending it was part of the game. It was deliberate, and everyone in the arena knew it. It wasn't reckless, it was controlled, measured, intentional. Because this wasn't about sending a message to the other team, it was a message to the league. Sophie had watched Caitlin take hit after hit, while officials stood by and shrugged. And for her, that moment was the last straw. And when reporters swarmed her after the game, expecting excuses or backpedaling, they got the opposite. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't apologize. She laid it all out. She said the refs had created this, that by ignoring dangerous plays and refusing to protect players, they were the ones who let this escalate, that this wasn't an accident, it was a buildup, years in the making. And here's the part that made everyone stop. She called it payback. She made it crystal clear that if the league wouldn't protect its own players, then the players would start protecting each other by any means necessary. And the fans, they backed her 100%. Social media lit up instantly. People were tired of watching stars get targeted and silenced. Finally, someone pushed back. Finally, someone fought fire with fire, because it wasn't just about Caitlyn anymore. It was about what kind of league the WNBA really wanted to be, and Sophie made sure they couldn't ignore that question any longer. At first, people thought it was just a rough few games, maybe rookie treatment, maybe teams testing her toughness, but then the numbers came out. And suddenly, it wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was fact. Caitlyn Clark, one player, has taken 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire WNBA this season. 17%. Let that sink in. That's not random. That's not welcome to the league. That's a spotlight on her back, and every team knows it. Legal analysts started weighing in, pointing out how rare those numbers are for any player, let alone a rookie. It's not just suspicious, it's almost impossible to explain unless something deeper is going on. You don't need a conspiracy theory when the math is this loud, because if one player is absorbing nearly a fifth of the league's most dangerous fouls, either she's the unluckiest athlete alive or she's being systematically targeted. And when you stack that stat next to the league's silence, it's hard not to connect the dots. It's not just about the fouls, it's about what they represent. That players feel comfortable going after her, that refs feel safe letting it slide, and that the league feels no pressure to step in, even when the numbers are screaming. This isn't just about bruises and missed calls, it's about a message being sent, and the message is clear. If you speak up, if you challenge the system, you better be ready to take the hits. The most powerful thing the WNBA has done in this entire situation is stay silent. No press conference, no statement, no vague quote from a league spokesperson, nothing. And that silence, it says more than any official comment ever could. Because when your biggest star is getting hammered on the court, when fans are demanding answers, when players are literally risking fines just to speak out, and you still say nothing, that's not a coincidence. That's a choice. It tells players their safety isn't the priority. It tells refs they won't be held accountable. And it tells anyone watching that the league would rather protect its image than its people. But it also forces a bigger question. Who actually has the power here? The players who bring in the crowds, or the people behind the scenes pulling the strings? Because right now, it's definitely not the players, and the silence proves it. When Caitlyn Clark, someone responsible for over half the league's viewership, calls out a broken system, and the response is total silence, that's not just bad optics. That's a warning to every other player in the league. Stay in line, or you're next. And the worst part? That silence has consequences. It doesn't just hurt Caitlyn. It tells every player that speaking up comes with a price. But here's the thing the league didn't expect. People are paying attention now. And no matter how quiet the front office stays, the damage is already done. If you really want to know what the WNBA values most, just look at what they've done and what they haven't. Because when the most talked about player in the league is getting knocked to the floor, taking more flagrant fouls than anyone else, and still drawing the biggest crowds in years, you'd think the league would step in. You'd think they'd protect her. But they didn't. Instead, they stayed quiet. No action, no accountability, just business as usual. And that silence? That told us everything. It told us that protecting the refs mattered more than protecting the players, that keeping up appearances mattered more than telling the truth, and that letting the games go on without controversy was more important than making sure they were fair. They had every opportunity to say something, to call out the fouls, to enforce the rules. But they didn't. And they didn't because they were afraid of what it would mean. If they admitted the officiating was out of control, they'd have to admit the system was broken. And if the system is broken, that means everything they've been selling to fans is built on a lie. So instead of stepping in, they doubled down. They stood behind the silence. behind the same officials making the same dangerous non-calls. And in doing that, they showed us exactly where their loyalties are. Not with the players, not with the fans, but with control. Because if players start challenging the system, if fans start demanding answers, if coaches start calling out bias, the league loses control of the narrative. And for them, that's the real threat. Not the fouls, not the headlines, not even the injuries. It's about power. Who has it, who keeps it, and who's allowed to question it. And right now, the league is showing us that protecting that power matters more than protecting the people actually playing the game. But the thing about choosing control over truth is that eventually it catches up to you. Because once trust is gone, once the fans stop believing the league has their players' backs, the damage is already done. And the WNBA might not realize it yet, but they're already running out of time. If this is what the regular season looks like, imagine what's coming next. Because as the playoffs get closer, the stakes get higher. Teams get more physical. Refs let more contact slide. And if Caitlin Clark is already taking this much damage now, what happens when everything's on the line? That's what has fans seriously worried. If the league won't step in to protect its most valuable player during a standard game, why would they do it during the most intense stretch of the season? We've already seen the trend. The hits are getting harder, the fouls are getting more blatant, and the punishments? Still nothing more than a flagrant one or a missed whistle. There's a real risk here, not just to Caitlin's safety, but to the integrity of the entire postseason. Because when players know they can get away with targeting, when refs look the other way, and when the league refuses to draw a line, that's when the game stops being fair. It stops being competitive. It becomes something else entirely, and you can bet teams are watching. Coaches are adjusting. Players are taking notes. If Caitlin Clark is going to be treated like an open target and there are no consequences, some teams are going to lean into that. Not because it's right, but because it works. And that's when things get dangerous. Not just physically, but for the future of the league. Because if the WNBA lets this happen during its most important games with its biggest star, then they're not just risking one player, they're risking the whole brand. Caitlin Clark didn't just call out bad officiating, she exposed the cracks in an entire system. She showed what happens when a player refuses to stay quiet. She forced the league to reveal where its priorities really are, and she made it clear that silence isn't neutral. It's a choice. Since those 6 words, nothing has been the same. Teammates are stepping in, fans are pushing back, and the league is scrambling to keep the spotlight off the one thing it can't control: the truth. This isn't just about one player getting hit too hard, it's about what the league does when someone challenges the system. And so far, they've chosen to do nothing. But people are watching now. The cameras are rolling, the stats don't lie, and the silence? That only makes the message louder. Because Caitlin didn't just start a conversation, she sparked something bigger. And the league can either face it or keep pretending it doesn't exist. Either way, the clock's ticking.